Nisha madam, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and Amrita madam, all of them who coordinated for this session. It's a very important session. The reason because disaster comes without notice, right? So, and if we are not prepared, I saw lots of quotes saying if we are not prepared, then the disaster is going to take its heavy toll. So coming to my presentation, so I am Vikas Brahmawar. I run this company called Trans Water System Private Limited. Prior to starting water industry, I was working in the UK as a software engineer, and during lunch break, I used to go walk near Thames, have bucket, and not even one day I had smell coming out of Thames. So when you go out of country, you suddenly become patriotic and you decide one day I have to go back to India and do start something. So that is what motivated me. 2008, I came back to start something on water. So the primary motive was to have non-chemical water treatment products in the market, so we don't affect the incoming water source by contaminating with chemicals. But over time, I realized that we get office calls saying that there is no water to even treat. So we are reaching a stage of scarcity. So now this discussion is predominantly on disaster risk based on water. So I only know about water, unlike Professor Vinod. He has huge knowledge in all the aspects. I know a little bit about water. I thought I will share something on those lines. And I want this session to be little useful, at least to all of them in the viewing us, and all of us. There has to be some learning which we take at the end of the session. That is my intention for this session. We nowadays have lots of rain during rainy season, and we frequently keep seeing the images which is on the left hand side where all the roads are clogged. And the common thing which people talk is flooding, landslide, because on a global scale, on a India scale, that is an important aspect to see. But how I involve in the grassroots, so I understand, see the problem of urban sanitation issues. So the picture on the left hand side is a normal case in any cities, any urban cities, which the infrastructure is not clearly planned for storm water drain. And there is, every time we see such large volume of water, we see, oh God, there is so much of water, and next 3 months we will still complain that there is no water. So this brings us to a point, there is huge sanitation hazard with the floods. And second thing we have seen in Bangalore, we have seen lakes catching fire. That is purely exploitation hazard. So in our country, we are used to meeting norms for the sake of meeting norms, not for the sake of not contaminating the environment. For example, an apartment is asked to put a sewage treatment plant. The motive for most of them is to meet the tick mark of the government norms and not to actually reuse that water. So this attitude change is coming now over time. We have seen from 2008 to 2020, we have seen a drastic change of people's attitude towards this. So these two together actually leads to groundwater exploitation hazard. And in 2018, we had a statistics of 7 people being killed because of water contamination. It could be any other water contamination, biological or chemical. So so this is what we call as disaster, because it keeps happening in our country. Someone is lost. As Professor said, one person should not be left behind in cases of disaster. And we keep seeing this, and we keep having forums where we keep discussing on problems, how to solve, but we still are not in a stage where we are able to prevent deaths during disaster. So this is one statistic which I found really interesting. In India, around 239 million Indians gets affected by arsenic contamination. So we are worried about bacterial contamination. We know that there is problem, but there are hidden problems like this, like heavy metal issues. 239 million people get affected, which is 18.8% of our population. They drink contaminated water. Now, how are we going to help these people who don't have access to any of the technology which we talk in urban scenario? And on the image on the right hand side, we see almost 718 districts. All the districts in India has one or the other type of heavy metal contamination, and we are all aware of it, but there is no enough steps to be taken, are being taken to solve this. There are lots of efforts which are going by companies like Watts, and lots of people are working enormously on these aspects, but they lack in terms of marketing. So I feel the problem in our country is not technology. We have great minds working on technology. It is actually the infrastructure and accessibility. If you go to a person on the road, he will know Hema Malini's Kent RO, but he won't know that there is arsenic in the water. So he need not know also. It is government's responsibility to create this awareness in terms of treating water, and that awareness has to come from the government. Now, we cannot keep saying government's problem, because we have that is what we do in college, normal time, and what we talk is government has to do this, government has to do this, but what are we doing it? That is one question we'll have to bring it to ourselves. So this data I got and really caught my, I see Rajasthan, this is 2014. Imagine 2014, Rajasthan, 4 million people got affected by fluorosis, bent bones. If you go to Tumkur region in Bangalore, there's heavy fluoride in the water, and municipal treatment generally is just one cascade aeration, which doesn't really remove fluoride and other contaminants in the water. So all these accounts to disaster in my sense in terms of water, because we have so many people getting affected and so many people dying out of it. So arsenic contaminants will lead to spotting. If you can see on the right hand side, huge spotting, and people don't know why they get this, and finally it boils down to water. And the urban population has to create infrastructure to support the rural population. Now, a few of my friends ask anything about water disaster, water scarcity. They say, is the scarcity real, or is it just the media is hyping that there is lots of water scarcity, 0 day for Bangalore and things like that? This is my practical case. 2008, when I moved back to India, we did a survey on what is the average borewell depth people go to extract water. The average borewell depth was around 200 feet, and the total dissolved contaminants was around 450 feet. And over 2020, we did the same study again. The average borewell depth is going 900 feet. Now, what does this mean? We are actually taking water which dinosaurs were drinking. One of my friends says dinosaurs were drinking that water, and we are putting a kilometer pipeline below the ground and extracting that water at a very alarming rate. Now, do we have data on these? Taking Karnataka government, we spend around 50,000 rupees per acre on surface water, meaning river water coming to our residences. We spend 50,000 rupees per acre. That's the budget government allocates. What do we allocate to understand what is below the ground? It is still not clear. So there is no enough study which is being done in terms of understanding what is aquifer level below the ground. So this makes it scary. In 2018, during one of the discussion, Bangalore had 18 days of water in the KRS dam. If we did not get 4 rainfall for that 18 days, Bangalore did not have water. Government could not have supplied Kaveri water in 2018 if we did not have 4 rains. So we are depending on a very strong point here, where 4 days rain, then we are done for the whole city, does not get water. So this is very critical thing to look at. We don't look at it because 2 years we have now got good rains. Again, we don't look at it for the next 2 years until we hit drought. So the infrastructure planning needs to understand what is the water available below the ground. Now, I would like to bring to your notice on the infrastructure which is currently available. See, all the developed countries, Singapore, UK, Israel, California, all these places, the water management planning is based on what is going out of the city. You know, a city has a certain population. You know, that is the volume of water it will generate, wastewater, and all your infrastructure is planned based on what is going out of the city, right? In our country, the water management planning is based on what is coming into the city, meaning we decide what is the level of KRS dam in Bangalore. We decide what is the level of KRS dam, how much can it supply, and we have no idea on what is going out of the city. We have some numbers which directly goes to purely contaminated water and goes to some agricultural field, but it is not efficiently managed. This infrastructure planning change, how do we manage water, needs to change. We as a company and I as an individual, we are trying to bring this. We have decided to dedicate our life's mission to create this infrastructure for our country, to have people look at this infrastructure of what is the water going out. It doesn't just address the water scarcity issue, it hugely addresses the water sanitation issue, because huge volume of water is going out to the drain on a daily basis. This is the number we have every day from just Bangalore. Imagine all cities in our country. Just in Bangalore, partially treated water for 200 crore liter every day goes to the drain. This is equivalent to 13 Varathur lakes. 13 lakes equivalent water is actually going to the drain. Imagine tankers standing in from Bangalore to Hyderabad. That is the volume of water which is actually going to the drain on daily basis. So what we do with the current infrastructure is we get rainwater or municipal water supplied to apartments, IT parks, individual houses. This water is not sufficient, so we exploit borewell. Other 88 crore liters every day for Bangalore goes from borewell. We take this, process it through sewage treatment plant. The government has done wonderful thing in terms of mandating sewage treatment plant. However, only around 20 or 30% of sewage treated water is actually used for flushing and garden. The remaining 70 or 80% of water is sent to the drain. So this is the current infrastructure which we have. Now, if we can change the infrastructure a little bit to manage this water, volume of water which is going to the drain on a daily basis, we have a sustainable infrastructure which can be built in our country. Now, when I say that, people say we have enough rain, India is a resourceful country, we have enough rain. Should we not plan just based on rain? Singapore gets enough rain, Israel gets lower rain, but Singapore still plans water based on what is going out of the city. All developed countries, their planning is based on what is going out of the city and not based on rain. Rain is a bonus for our expansion at a pace which is unprecedented. Rain is a bonus. We will keep needing rainwater. I'm not saying rainwater is not required. That's the most important thing we'll have to do. But the infrastructure planning should be based on what is going out of the city. So I got this data based on population and demand for water over time. So, so if you see 2051 or 2030 UN SDG goal, we have a huge demand which cannot be met with the existing supply of water. What are we going to do? Oh, we will have fights between the states. If we continue with the same infrastructure, we will not have any sustainable method to meet this demand, which is going to be generated over years to come. So, how are we currently what is happening is the movement of rural population towards urban has been drastically increasing over time, and we expect almost 50% of rural population to move to urban cities. The predominant reason for this being lack of economical viabilities of agriculture in most regions, lack of water. So for example, we take water, cities take water from the river belt and pump it say 100 kilometers away to the city. We send wastewater 200, 300, 200, 250 crore liters of wastewater, which is affecting the soil in most cases. In some cases, it is also supplied to agriculture. But however, seeing this difference in terms of movement of rural population to urban cities, the problem of the urban cities solves the rural problem as well in a way. So I will take an example on water supply data for Bangalore, right? Kaveri water, municipal water, every day we get around 145 crore liters of water every day. This is what comes to the city from the river supply, out of which 46% goes on leakages. So we have very little coming in, 50% of that is gone. The remaining 80 to 100 crore liters of water comes from borewell water exploitation. So we are taking water at an enormous rate. Now, if say by 2030, SDG goal, if we reach a population of 2 crore, we will need around 400 crore liter of water every day. Now, how are we planning that? So anything for that kind of population needs to be planned now. What can be done now to have a population of 2 crore meeting 400 crore liter of water per day? That planning cannot come just on, we cannot depend on only one river and keep depending on that, keep fighting on one river. We have to depend on sustainable sources, take models from developed countries, how are they adopting, and that is the way forward for cities to become sustainable. So this picture which you see on the left-hand side is the pumping stations. Bangalore city pumps water 100 kilometers away using 65 substations, out of which 60% or 70%, I think the budget of government goes on power cost for sending the water from the river to the city. We have enormously good looking large plants coming up using enormous amount of power to pump the water from the river to the city. So once they pump, in terms of disaster, once they pump, the only treatment which is generally done is chlorination and cascade aeration as the city level. So any issues like lead contamination, carcinogen contamination, arsenic contamination, all these are currently not monitored on a government scale. The reason why is it not monitored? This has been the way which people have followed for the past 75 years. We have been doing the same thing, and this change from this will come from technology and recovery of water, because good technologies come into picture when there is bad quality water in picture. We have been lucky enough to have not found huge contaminants. There is contaminants in the river water, but if the technology has to develop, the water treatment has to go the reverse way. What are we sending out? This is our plan for 2030 sustainable development goal. We have decided to work on this infrastructure to create the wastewater which can be recovered and given to industries. Say there is an apartment complex, they already have a sewage treatment plant, right? The sewage treatment plant partially is used for flushing in garden, remaining is sent to the drain. We put our equipment for the water which is going to the drain. It need not be our equipment, it can be any tertiary treatment system which can produce potable water. We produce a very high quality water, send it to industry, send it to cooling towers. Why does a washing unit, fabric washing unit where they put detergents, why do they need municipal water, exploited borewell water for their consumption? If we're able to give them very high quality water, which is better than even municipal water, just to avoid psychological barrier, can they not use this water? So our current installed capacity is 34 crore liters of water we're able to recover every year, our installed capacity. Now we want to increase it to 100 crore liter of water by 2022, next year. So that is our plan. Now, if we are able to create an infrastructure as an individual company like this, and there are many more players coming in and government takes initiative in terms of creating this infrastructure, then we solve industrial water requirement properly. People don't have to depend on borewell or a municipal water for their industrial water. Now, we had gone through lots of issues in terms of tanker mafia, people not letting us take the excess water. I'm speaking straight off my heart, so it probably connects to a few people. So we had lots of issues, tankers not letting us. So we hear people saying that tanker mafia, how are you going to handle? Because they won't let you take the excess water to the industries. After 1 year struggle, we finally have found out a mechanism to partner with these communities. Professor Vinod was saying community partnership is very important. So we have partnered with the apartment association, that is one side of community. We make the economics viable for the apartment association to give their excess water. And with the tankers, we have finally cracked using help of Biocon Foundation, few other foundations, where they will be distributing our water without losing revenue. All they do is, instead of extracting borewell water at 4 paisa per liter, they will take our water instead of borewell water. So it is a business for them. It is a business for apartment complex. It is a win-win for the industries. So all of them in the cycle benefit with this model. This model won't be successful with proper technology intervention. Example, we need to know what is the quality of water coming out of our equipment. We have IoT based sensors, predictive analysis, where we monitor lots of parameters which is coming out of the system. And to make these models sustainable, technology helps us a lot. For example, if we did not have this predictive analysis, we had to station a person permanently in the location where the system is installed 24/7. Now IoT and all these are helping us give data, and we send people, say, only once a week, only when we need to send, and we analyze on when to send. That we work on a mechanism called predictive analysis. So these things need to be adopted at the government level as well, because they need to know what is the water they are giving to the city. Now, has it been implemented in other cities in our country? Different countries? Windhoek, Namibia, they have been doing direct potable reuse for the past 50 years. For the past 50 years, they recycle their water and take it to their community. 50 years, direct potable reuse. DPR is direct potable reuse. California has, when I say Namibia, they say only African countries do this. No, it is advanced countries as well. Singapore does indirect potable reuse. California has both direct potable and indirect potable reuse. Israel has direct DPR and indirect potable reuse. And Texas is one more example. All these countries have stabilized this infrastructure, but it is done at a government level. In our country, it has to be a decentralized mechanism where If a government decides today to set up this infrastructure, it will take 25 years for them to actually implement the whole scale. By that time, we'll have different problems to address. So it has to be decentralized infrastructure, which is required for our country at this moment. So with our efforts and with lots of people's efforts together, we are able to address these parameters: SDG Goal 6 for clean water and sanitation, sustainable cities and community. And as Professor Vinod said, we are now introducing that 17 sustainable, where communities are being involved. So we are trying to address all these. And I believe over time, we will have an infrastructure for all the cities in our country where we don't fight for waters, where we are able to plan our water and we become sustainable, and we don't exploit the available human resource, and we become hopefully disaster free, or at least handle disaster in a dignified way, so that we don't leave anyone behind. I will finish with the case study. Now, Kaveri government has planned Kaveri phase 5 to increase the amount of Kaveri water being supplied to the developing Bangalore, developing outskirts of Bangalore. Lots of people don't get municipal water. So Kaveri phase 4 is planned at a project cost of 5,552 crores. And we believe this will take next 5 years or 6 years. 2023 they have told, but we believe probably 5 years this will get implemented. But do we have enough water to supply? When we have 46% leakage, do we have enough water to supply? This is a point to think. And this is completely dependent on rain, which falls on the dams, and we are spending 5,500 crores. Now, if we adopt a decentralized mechanism to treat the wastewater and recover it for industries, we'll be able to supply 77.5 crore liter of water for industries on daily basis, with half the cost as what government is projecting. Now, I think this is a point we will have to look in terms of developing infrastructure. And I'm happy that we are starting this and lots of people are supporting. We have been very fortunate that any activity we do, we have one or the other foundations supporting us in taking this. RMZ EcoWorld has supported now. Brigade, one of the biggest builders, has supported. We should, lots of people are supporting us on this mission. We believe over the next 2 years, we should be able to save 100 crore liter of water. If we do not involve in changing the infrastructure and keep blaming the government, we will stay in the same place, and 20 years later with the same kind of forum, we'll still discuss the same problems. I believe all of us will put our heart and soul to create an infrastructure which is sustainable and beneficial for all the future generation. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and it has been a pleasure speaking in this forum. Thank you very much.